The vault door hissed open for the first time in 40 years. Dust particles danced in the beam of Dr. Yenna's headlamp as she stepped into the forgotten storage chamber. Her four arms held scanning equipment while her compound eyes adjusted to the darkness. The Galactic Preserve Station had 17 sublevels, and this one had been sealed since before she arrived. Nobody came down here anymore. There was nothing left to preserve. Draxel 4 turned slowly beneath the station, a dead world covered in crystal forests that no longer sang. The dragons who had built those forests were gone, wiped out by a plague that moved faster than any cure. That was 200 years ago. The galaxy had moved on, but scientists like Yenna stayed behind, cataloging what remained, making sure the universe remembered. She moved between rows of storage pods, each one containing artifacts from dragon civilization. Musical instruments that required 3 throats to play. Star charts carved in metal that would last 1,000,000 years. Children's toys shaped like comets. All of it carefully preserved. All of it useless now. Her scanner beeped near the back wall. Yenna frowned. The reading showed thermal activity, which made no sense. Everything down here should be cold and still. She pushed past a fallen shelving unit and found it. The egg sat in a containment field that had long since failed. It was massive, nearly 2 meters tall, with scales that once might have shimmered but now looked dull as stone. Yenna had seen pictures of dragon eggs in the archives. They were supposed to glow from within, pulsing with the heartbeat of the life inside. This one was dark, silent, cold. She ran her scanner over the surface. No life signs, no heat signature, no movement. Dead, like everything else from Draxel 4. But her records showed this egg had never been logged. Someone had hidden it down here, perhaps hoping for a miracle that never came. Yenna tapped her communicator. I found something. Sublevel 17. You need to see this. Within an hour, the chamber filled with researchers. Churik, whose feathered body barely came up to Yenna's thorax, fluttered around the egg, taking measurements. Others set up scanning equipment, arguing in 6 different languages about what to do next. It has been dead for centuries, said one of the geologists. We should move it to the museum level. We should try to revive it, Churik argued, his translator rendering his chirps into galactic common. This could be the last dragon egg in existence. We tried revival procedures on 12 other eggs, Yenna said quietly. None of them worked. The plague killed them in the shell. This one is no different. But even as she said it, something bothered her. The egg had been hidden. Someone had placed it here deliberately, away from the others. Why? The debate continued for 3 days. In the end, they moved the egg to a research chamber on level 3, where better equipment could monitor it. Not because they thought anything would happen, but because throwing it away felt like giving up the last piece of hope for an entire species. While the scientists argued about revival protocols, the human supply ship docked at Port 7. The wandering star brought supplies every 6 months, along with the families who rotated through various stations. Humans had a strange custom of bringing their children with them, even to remote research posts. Most species found this inefficient. Why bring younglings to places with no schools, no playmates, no proper facilities? But humans insisted. They said children needed to see the universe, that keeping families together mattered more than efficiency. Lucy tumbled out of the docking tube ahead of her parents, her small shoes squeaking on the metal floor. She had brown hair pulled into 2 messy braids and carried a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Her parents followed, dragging luggage and talking to the station coordinator about their quarters. They were botanists, assigned to study what remained of Draxel's plant life. Important work that would take at least a year. Lucy, age 6 and completely unconcerned with botany, was already bored. She wandered while her parents filled out forms. The station was huge and mostly empty. Most of the researchers were down on the planet or locked in their labs. She found a lift and pressed buttons at random. Level 3. The doors opened on a long corridor lined with research chambers. Lucy walked slowly, peering through windows at strange equipment and stranger experiments. One room had rocks that floated. Another had plants growing upside down. She pressed her nose against each window, fogging the glass with her breath. Then she heard it. Not with her ears, exactly. More like a feeling in her chest. Sad, lonely, cold. She followed the feeling to a chamber at the end of the hall. The window was darker than the others, and she had to stand on her toes to see inside. The egg sat in the center of the room, surrounded by machines that blinked and hummed. It was the biggest egg Lucy had ever seen. Bigger than her. Bigger than the dinosaur eggs at the museum back on Earth. But something was wrong with it. It looked sick, tired, sad. Lucy tried the door. Locked. She knocked, but nobody came. The feeling in her chest grew stronger. The egg needed help. She could feel it calling, even though it made no sound. Security found her 20 minutes later, still standing at the window. Her parents were frantic, having discovered she had wandered off. But Lucy barely heard their scolding. She kept looking back at the egg as they led her away. That night, in the small quarters assigned to her family, Lucy asked her mother about dragons. Her mother, tired from move, pulled up some files on her tablet. Pictures of the great beasts that once flew through Draxel's crystal forests. Stories of their songs, their cities, their art. Are they all gone? Lucy asked. Yes, sweetie. The sickness took them all. Even the babies? Her mother hesitated. Even the babies. Lucy hugged her stuffed rabbit tight. She thought about the egg, cold and alone in that room. Nobody should be alone like that. Not even an egg that everyone said was dead. She made a decision then, the way children do. Simple, absolute, unshakable. She would visit the egg tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until it did not feel so sad anymore. In the research chamber, the machines continued their pointless vigil. The egg remained cold, dark, silent. The numbers on the screens never changed. No heartbeat, no worms, no hope. But deep in the core, in a place too small for any scanner to detect, something waited. Something that had been waiting for 200 years. Waiting for warmth, for connection, for love. Waiting for Lucy. Lucy had watched the guards for 3 days. They changed shifts every 8 hours. For exactly 4 minutes during the change, nobody stood at the checkpoint between sections. She timed it with her mother's old watch out on the 4th day. She made her move. Her parents thought she was at the station library. The librarian, a kind blob-like creature named Orlo, thought she had gone back to her quarters for lunch. Neither checked. Adults were easy to fool when you were quiet and polite. She slipped through the checkpoint at exactly 1400-hour station time, clutching her stuffed rabbit in one hand and a blanket in the other. The corridor to level 3 stretched empty before her. Her heart pounded, but her steps stayed steady. The egg was waiting. The door to the research chamber was still locked, but someone had left a cleaning cart nearby. Lucy climbed onto it and peered through the window. The egg sat exactly where it had been before, dark and still. All those machines around it, blinking their lights, but nobody was actually with it. Nobody was keeping it company. She knocked on the window. "Hello," she whispered. "I came back." Dr. Yenna found her 10 minutes later. The mantis-like scientist had been reviewing scans in the adjacent lab when she heard the knocking. She opened the door, ready to scold whoever was interrupting her work. Instead, she found a small human child standing on a cleaning cart, one hand pressed against the glass, talking softly to a dead dragon egg. "You should not be here," Yenna said, her translator making her clicks sound stern. "This is a restricted area." Lucy turned around. She did not look scared. "The egg is lonely." Yenna's antennae twitched. "The egg is not alive. It cannot be lonely." "Yes, it can." Lucy climbed down from the cart with the confidence of someone absolutely certain they were right. "I can feel it. It is very, very lonely. And cold. Your feelings are not scientific data, small human. My name is Lucy." The child walked right past Yenna into the chamber. Before the scientist could react, Lucy had climbed onto the platform where the egg rested. She pressed both hands against its surface. "See? Cold as ice. That is not good for babies." Yenna should have called security. Should have removed the child immediately. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the serious look on Lucy's face. Maybe it was the fact that in all her years studying this dead civilization, nobody had ever touched the artifacts with such gentleness. "What are you doing?" Yenna asked. Lucy pulled the blanket from her pocket and tried to drape it over the egg. It was far too small, barely covering a section near the top. Making it warm. Babies need to be warm. It is not a baby. It is a specimen. It is a baby who is sick and needs help. Lucy sat down next to the egg, her small body pressed against its surface. She began to hum, some human tune Yenna did not recognize. The kind of song a mother might sing to comfort child. Yenna watched for a long moment. Then she tapped her communicator. Security, this is Dr. Yenna. Yes, I found the lost human child. No, do not come retrieve her yet. I am conducting an experiment. Lucy visited every day after that. Somehow, despite Yenna informing her parents, despite multiple attempts to restrict her access, the child always found a way back to the egg. She was patient and clever and absolutely determined. After the fifth escape, Lucy's parents came to the research chamber themselves. They looked exhausted. Their daughter, usually so obedient, had become impossible to control on this one issue. We are very sorry, Lucy's father said to Yenna. We will keep better watch on her. Actually, Yenna said slowly, I have been monitoring something. May I show you? She pulled up her data screens. Temperature readings from the egg's surface over the past 2 weeks. For decades, the temperature had remained constant at 4.2 degrees Celsius. Cold, stable, dead. But starting 8 days ago, the numbers had begun to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, but changing 4.3 degrees. Then 4.4. Then 4.5. Environmental fluctuation, Lucy's mother said, studying the data with a botanist's eye. The room temperature must have changed. The room temperature has not changed. I checked. Yenna brought up more data. The only variable is your daughter's presence. They all turned to look at Lucy, who was sitting beside the egg reading it a story about a rabbit who flew to the moon. She had brought her stuffed rabbit, propped it against the egg, and was explaining each picture in detail. That is impossible, Lucy's father said. Churuk fluttered into the chamber, his feathers ruffled with excitement. Dr. Yenna, you need to see this. The internal scans from this morning. He projected a hologram above his tablet. Deep in the egg's core, something had changed. The cellular structure showed signs of movement. Microscopic, barely detectable. But there, movement where there should be none. Yenna's forehands trembled as she checked the data 3 times. This cannot be happening. What cannot be happening? Lucy asked, looking up from her book. Your egg, Churuk chirped. It may not be dead after all. Lucy smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she had known this all along. Of course it is not dead. It was just sleeping, waiting for someone to love it. Word spread through the station fast. Scientists abandoned their other projects to crowd around the research chamber, watching the impossible unfold. The temperature continued rising. The cellular movement increased. Scans detected what might be neural activity, though so faint it could have been instrument error, should have been instrument error. Yenna ran an experiment. She asked Lucy's parents to keep their daughter away from the egg for 72 hours, just to eliminate variables, to prove scientifically what was happening. Lucy cried. She begged. She promised to be good forever if they would just let her visit. But her parents, confused and worried, kept her in their quarters. They played games with her, read her books, tried to distract her from the egg she insisted was her friend. In the research chamber, the machines recorded everything. Hour by hour, the temperature began to drop. The cellular movement slowed. The faint neural patterns faded. By hour 60, all the readings had returned to their previous baseline cold. Still, dead. On hour 72, Yenna personally went to retrieve Lucy. The child looked smaller somehow, her eyes red from crying. She did not say anything, just held Yenna's lowest hand and walked quickly back to the research chamber. The moment Lucy entered the room, she ran to the egg, climbed up, pressed her whole body against its cold surface, and sang the same lullaby she had hummed on the first day. Soft, sweet, full of love. The machines registered the change within minutes. Temperature rising, movement resuming, neural patterns flickering back to life, and then so faint that half the observers thought they imagined it. They heard it. A heartbeat, 0.1 beat. Then nothing. Then another beat. Slow, weak, but unmistakable. The egg had a pulse. The message reached Earth 30 hours later. From Earth, it spread to every research station, university, and scientific body in the Galactic Assembly. The headline was simple and impossible. Extinct dragon egg shows signs of life. Dr. Yena's laboratory became the center of the universe overnight. Requests for data flooded in. Ships changed course to reach the station. Scientists who had spent their whole careers studying dragon biology scrambled to book transport. The last dragon egg was waking up, and everyone wanted to witness it. Lucy did not care about any of that. She came to the chamber every morning after breakfast, stayed until lunch, returned after her afternoon lessons, and visited again before bed. She brought books and toys. She told the egg about her day. She sang songs her grandmother had taught her. Sometimes she just sat quietly, one small hand resting on the shell, keeping it company. The egg responded. The heartbeat grew stronger week by week. The temperature climbed steadily. Internal scans showed development that should have been impossible. Something was growing inside, rebuilding itself cell by cell. Church spent 18 hours a day analyzing data. His feathers had lost their usual gloss and his eyes looked tired, but he refused to rest. "We are missing something," he kept saying. "Dragon eggs do not revive from death. That is not biology. That is magic. Maybe it is both," Yena suggested. She had been studying the old dragon texts, fragments recovered from the ruins below. Look at this passage. It talks about egg keeping. The translation has always been difficult, but I think we read it wrong. She projected the ancient writing on the wall. The symbols glowed faintly, dragon script that had not been read aloud in 2 centuries. We thought this word meant incubator or warming device, but could also mean heart keeper or love giver. Dragons did not just keep their eggs warm. They bonded with them, sang to them, loved them while they grew. Emotional incubation, Church whispered. That is why the plague was so devastating. It did not just kill the adult dragons. It killed the bonding behavior. The eggs could not develop without that connection. And humans, Yena continued, looking through the window at Lucy, who is currently acting out a story with her stuffed rabbit for the egg's benefit. Humans bond with everything. They form emotional attachments to plants, to machines, to rocks that look vaguely like faces. A child like Lucy sees a cold egg and does not think specimen. She thinks baby who needs love. So she is providing what the egg was designed to need. What has been waiting for all this time? They watched Lucy together. The small human had fallen asleep against the egg, curled up like a cat, her chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. The monitors showed the egg's heartbeat had synchronized with hers. "We need to protect this," Yena said quietly. "When the others arrive, they will want to study it. Poke it, test it, separate the child from the egg to see what happens. The egg will die again. Yes, and I will not allow that." Yena's mandibles clicked with determination. "We will limit access. Only essential personnel. Lucy's well-being and the egg's development take priority over scientific curiosity." But even Yena could not hold back the tide forever. The ships started arriving in the 3rd week. Delegates from the Galactic Assembly, each representing different species and different interests. They were polite, professional, but they all wanted the same thing: access to the egg, data, control. The Sorcs came last, 7 of them in a sleek vessel that made the station's docking clamps groan. They were reptilian, cold-blooded, with scales that shifted between green and blue depending on their mood. Their leader, a tall female named Syrinx, had eyes like yellow glass and a voice that could freeze water. "We are the closest living relatives to the dragons," she announced at the first assembly meeting. "The egg should be in our care. We understand its biology. We can provide proper cold-blooded guardianship." "The egg is already in proper care," Yena argued. "Moving it now could be fatal." "Fatal?" Syrinx laughed, a sound like rocks scraping together. "You have a warm-blooded mammal child treating a priceless relic like a pet. That is not care. That is contamination." Lucy's father stood up. His face was red. "My daughter is not contaminating anything. She is helping. Your daughter is a variable that needs to be removed. We propose a controlled environment. Sterile, scientific, We will keep the egg at optimal temperature while we study the revival process. The egg needs more than temperature, Chirk chirped. It needs emotional bonding. Superstition, Syrinx hissed. Dragon biology does not run on feelings. It runs on chemistry, physics, and proper incubation protocols. The argument continued for hours. Votes were called. Data was presented. But the Sorix had political power that Yenna and her small research team did not. They had funding, resources, legal authority. In the end, the assembly voted to transfer primary custody of the egg to the Sorix delegation for observation and study. Lucy could still visit, they said, but under supervision, controlled conditions, limited duration. Nobody asked Lucy what she thought. When they told her, she did not cry or yell. She just looked at them with those serious brown eyes and said, "The egg will be scared." "Eggs do not feel fear," Syrinx said. "You have anthropomorphized a biological specimen." "It will be scared," Lucy repeated, "and sad, and it will go back to sleep." "Child, you do not understand the science." "I understand, my friend." They moved the egg the next day. A medical transport with sterile chambers and exact temperature controls. The Sorix had set up a laboratory on level 9 with equipment that cost more than the entire research station. Everything was perfect, clinical, cold. Lucy was allowed 1 hour of supervised visitation per day. She spent that hour sitting beside the egg in the new chamber, telling it stories, promising she would come back tomorrow, that everything would be okay. The egg's heartbeat, which had grown strong and steady, began to slow. In her laboratory, Yenna watched the data feeds with growing dread. Temperature dropping, neural activity decreasing. The egg was dying again. "Give it time," Syrinx insisted. "The organism is adjusting to proper care." But Yenna had seen this pattern before. During the 72-hour experiment, the egg was not adjusting. It was shutting down. Without Lucy's constant presence, without her warmth and songs and stories and love, the egg was returning to the cold silence where it had waited for 200 years, and nobody seemed willing to admit the truth. That bringing the egg back to life required more than science could provide. It required something messy and unmeasurable and absolutely essential. IT required a 6-year-old child who believed that everything, even a long-dead dragon egg, deserved to be loved. 5 days after the transfer, the egg's heartbeat was barely detectable. The Sorix ran test after test, adjusted temperatures, modified atmospheric conditions, tried every scientific protocol ever documented for dragon biology. Nothing worked. Lucy's 1 hour of daily visitation became the only time the monitors showed any improvement. For 60 minutes, the egg's vital signs would spike. Temperature would rise. Neural patterns would strengthen. Then Lucy would leave, and everything would fade again. "This proves nothing," Syrinx insisted during the daily briefings. "Correlation is not causation. The organism may be responding to any number of factors." Yenna was done being polite. "The only factor that changes is Lucy's presence. You know this. We all know this. What I know is that dragon physiology does not depend on the emotional state of a human child. That would be absurd. More absurd than a dead egg coming back to life." Syrinx's scales flushed dark blue, a sign of anger in her species. "You are letting sentiment cloud your judgment, Doctor. We will solve this through proper scientific method." But the egg continued dying. Hour by hour, day by day, it returned to the cold, dark state where Yenna had first found it. All the progress Lucy had made over weeks of patient care was unraveling. Lucy knew. Children always knew. She spent her hour each day pressed against the egg, whispering apologies, promising she would find a way to stay longer. But guards waited by the door. When her time ended, they would gently pull her away. She stopped fighting after the second day. Fighting only made them hold her tighter. Her parents tried to explain that the scientists knew best, that the Sorix had equipment and knowledge that would help. But Lucy had stopped talking to them. She ate her meals in silence, did her lessons without complaint, went to bed when told. But the light had gone out of her eyes. "She is grieving," her mother told Yenna one evening. They sat in the station's small garden, the only place with real plants and open sky views. She thinks the egg is dying, and it is her fault for not being strong enough to fight for it. It is dying, Yenna said quietly, and it is not her fault. It is ours. We let politics override biology. Can you do anything? Not officially. The Assembly has given the Sorcs full authority. Yenna's antennae drooped. I've spent my entire career studying dead civilizations, cataloging what was lost, making sure we remember. But this was a chance to bring something back, to undo extinction. And we are killing it again because we cannot accept that love matters as much as data. Below them, Draxel foreturned in the darkness. Its crystal forest caught starlight and bent it into colors that had no names. Beautiful and empty. A monument to everything they had failed to save. The crisis came on day 7. Lucy arrived for her scheduled visitation at 1400 hour station time, like always. But when the guards opened the laboratory door, she did not move. She stood in the doorway, staring at the egg in its sterile containment field, and her small face crumpled. "It is too quiet," she whispered. The monitors confirmed what she felt. The heartbeat had stopped 3 hours ago. The Sorcs were running emergency procedures, flooding the egg with nutrients, adjusting every variable they could measure. But they were trying to revive a machine, and the egg was not a machine. Lucy walked slowly to the containment field. The Sorcs had banned physical contact, citing contamination concerns. She could only stand outside the energy barrier and look at the egg she had spent weeks bonding with. "I am sorry," she said. "I am so sorry." Syrinx looked up from her instruments. For a moment, something almost like understanding flickered in her yellow eyes. "Child, you did nothing wrong. Then why won't you let me help?" "Because help requires control procedures, measurable interventions, not feelings." Lucy's hands pressed against the energy barrier. "Feelings are real. Just because you cannot see them on a screen does not mean they do not matter. In science, we deal with observable phenomena. Then observe this." Lucy began to sing, the same lullaby she had sung on that first day. Her voice was small and shaky, breaking on some of the notes. But she sang anyway. The monitors stayed flat. No heartbeat, no response. The egg remained cold and dark. Lucy sang louder. Tears ran down her face, but her voice did not stop. She sang like someone trying to call back a friend who was walking away. Desperate, determined, absolutely refusing to give up. Scientists from other labs began to gather at the windows. Yenna arrived, pushing through the crowd. Churik fluttered at her shoulder, his translator silent for once. They all watched the small human child sing to a dead egg, her whole body shaking with effort. And then, in the observation room down the hall, alarm klaxons began to wail. The main power grid was fluctuating. Something was drawing massive amounts of energy from the station's reactor. Every screen in the facility flickered. Lights dimmed and brightened in waves in the laboratory. The containment field around the egg began to pulse in rhythm with Lucy's song. "That is impossible," one of the Sorcs technicians said. "The field is not programmed to do that." But it was doing it anyway. Pulsing, flickering. And with each pulse, energy was flowing into the egg. Not from the scientific equipment, from somewhere else. From the station itself. From the very walls and air and fabric of space around them. From Lucy, the child had stopped singing. She swayed on her feet, her skin pale, her eyes unfocused. But her hands remained pressed against the barrier, and light was flowing from them. Impossible light. The kind that did not show up on any spectrum analyzer because it was not made of photons. That it was made of love. Pure. Unconditional. Absolute. "Someone stop this," Syrinx ordered. "The child is in danger." But nobody moved. They were all watching the egg, watching the cracks begin to form on its surface, watching light seep through those cracks, not from inside the egg, but from Lucy, flowing into it like water into a dry riverbed. The heartbeat returned. 1 beat, 2 beats, 3. Strong, steady, alive. Lucy collapsed. Yenna caught her before she hit the floor. The child's skin was cold, her breathing shallow. She had given everything she had, more than she had. She had poured her life force into the egg, not knowing or caring what it would cost her. "Medical team to level 9. Yenna shouted into her communicator. Now! But even as they rushed Lucy to the medical bay, even as doctors worked to stabilize her, nobody could look away from the laboratory. Because the egg was moving, shaking, the cracks spreading across its surface like lightning across a dark sky. Something inside was waking up, and it was angry. Lucy woke up in the medical bay with tubes in her arms and her mother crying beside the bed. Everything felt heavy, wrong, like part of her was missing. The egg, she whispered. Sure, baby. Do not worry about that now. Is it okay? Her mother exchanged a look with her father. It is changing. The doctors say you need a rest. But Lucy could feel it. Even here, 3 levels away, she could feel the egg. It was scared, confused, looking for her. She tried to sit up, but her body would not cooperate. Whatever she had done in the laboratory had taken everything. In level 9, chaos had erupted. The egg was hatching, but not the way any of the scientists had predicted. It was not a gradual process. It was violent, desperate. The shell cracked, like something inside was fighting its way out, but did not know how. The Sorcs had sealed the laboratory. Armed security stood at every entrance, not to keep people out, but to contain whatever emerged. Nobody knew if the dragon would be hostile, if it would even be sane after such a traumatic revival. Sarek stood at the observation window, her scales flickering between colors too fast to read. We should sedate it before it fully hatches. Absolutely not, Yenna snapped. You have done enough damage. The organism is unstable. Look at the readings. Neural patterns are erratic. Hormone levels are off the scale. This is not a healthy hatching. Because you separated it from Lucy, the bond was not complete. You forced it to wake up in a cold laboratory surrounded by strangers. Yenna's 4 arms gestured sharply. Of course it is unstable. It is terrified. The egg shook harder. Pieces of shell fell away, revealing glimpses of what lay inside. Scales that shifted between colors. A wing that unfurled and folded back. Eyes that opened and closed, glowing like molten gold. And then it screamed. Not a roar. A scream. The sound of abandonment and fear and loneliness compressed into a single wail that shattered 3 observation windows and sent everyone in the corridor stumbling backward with their hands over their ears. In the medical bay, Lucy sat straight up, ripping the tubes from her arms. It needs me. Lucy, no. Her mother tried to hold her down, but the child twisted free with strength that should not have been possible. She was already running before the medical alarm started blaring. She knew the way. Even half-conscious and weak, her feet found the path to level 9. Guards tried to stop her, but she ducked under their arms, too small and too fast. Elevators were locked down, so she took the maintenance shafts, climbing with hands that shook, but did not stop. By the time she reached the laboratory corridor, the egg had gone silent. The Sorc security had raised their weapons. Inside the chamber, the egg sat completely still, shell half broken, the creature inside waiting. Lucy pushed through the crowd of scientists and security personnel. Let me pass. Child, stay back, Sarek warned. The organism is dangerous. It is not an organism. It is a baby. And it is my friend. Lucy walked to the laboratory door. Her hand pressed against the lock panel. It should not have opened. She had no clearance. But the door slid open anyway, responding to something in her touch that went beyond security codes. She stepped into the chamber alone. The egg turned toward her. Or rather, the thing inside the egg oriented in her direction. She could see it clearly now through the broken shell. A dragon, small and wet and trembling. Its scales were the color of dawn, pink and gold and purple all at once. Its eyes, huge and terrified, fixed on Lucy with desperate recognition. Hey, Lucy said softly. I am here. I am sorry I left. They made me. But I am here now. The dragon made a sound. Part whimper, part chirp. It tried to move toward her, but the shell fragments still trapped its legs. It struggled, panic rising, the beginnings of another scream building in its throat. Lucy walked forward without hesitation. She was 6 years old, barely tall enough to reach the top of the egg platform. The dragon inside was already bigger than a large dog, with claws that could shred metal and teeth that gleamed sharp even in their newborn state. Any adult would have been terrified. Lucy climbed up and wrapped her arms around the dragon's neck. "You are okay," she whispered. "I have got you." The dragon's scream died before it began. Its whole body relaxed into Lucy's embrace. The violent shaking stopped. The erratic neural patterns that had terrified the scientists smoothed into gentle waves. Outside the chamber, every monitor showed the same thing. The dragon's vital signs synchronizing with Lucy's. Two heartbeats becoming one rhythm. Two organisms, completely different, completely impossible, becoming something new together. Lucy felt the dragon's confusion, its fear, but also its recognition. It knew her, not from the weeks she had spent talking to the egg, but from something deeper. The dragon had been dreaming in that cold, dark space, dreaming of warmth and love and safety. And all those dreams had Lucy's voice in them. Lucy's songs, Lucy's heartbeat. "Let me help you," Lucy said. She began pulling away pieces of shell, gently, carefully. The dragon stayed still, trusting her completely. Each piece that fell revealed more of the creature underneath. Wings that would someday span the width of a ship. Talons that could cut through Starship Hull. A tail that ended in crystalline spines that caught the light and scattered rainbows. But right now, it was just a baby. Scared and new and absolutely certain that Lucy was the most important thing in the universe. When the last piece of shell fell away, the dragon stood on shaky legs. It was beautiful, terrifying, ancient and newborn at the same time. It looked around the laboratory at all the machines and screens and instruments, at the Sorcs standing rigid beyond the glass, at the humans and aliens crowded in the observation room. And then it looked back at Lucy and made a decision that IT roared. Not a scream this time. A roar. The sound of species that had ruled a world, that had built cities in crystal forests, that had sung songs to the stars. A sound that had been silent for 200 years. The roar shook the station to its bones. It shattered every piece of glass on level 9. It set off alarms from engineering to the docking bays. It announced to the universe that the dragons had not died. They had only been sleeping, waiting, and now they were awake. The dragon refused to eat for 3 days. Dr. Yenna tried everything. Different foods based on historical records. Synthesized nutrients. Live prey that other carnivores on the station enjoyed. The dragon looked at it all with those molten gold eyes and turned away. IT would only accept food if Lucy held it. Lucy, who had to be carried to the feeding sessions because she still had not fully recovered from the energy transfer. Lucy, who weighed maybe 20 kilograms and was trying to care for a creature that already massed 3 times that and was growing larger every day. "This is unsustainable," Lucy's mother said. She looked exhausted. Her daughter had become bonded to something that should not exist, and nobody knew what to do about it. "She needs to go back to normal life," Lucy's father added. "School, friends, not spending every waking moment with a dragon." But Lucy was not listening to them. She sat in the newly expanded habitat they had built on level 5, watching Freya practice flying. The dragon could not really fly yet. Mostly she jumped and flapped and crashed into walls. But she was trying, and Lucy cheered for every attempt. Freya. That was what Lucy had named her, after some old Earth story about a goddess. The scientists had wanted to give her a proper scientific designation. But when they tried to use anything except Freya, the dragon would not respond. She knew her name because Lucy had chosen it. Syrinx came to visit on the 4th day. Her scales were neutral gray, the color of someone attempting diplomacy. She stood at the habitat entrance and watched Lucy teaching Freya to fetch a ball. "I was wrong," Syrinx said. It clearly hurt to admit it. About the emotional bonding. About its scientific validity. The data is undeniable now. Yenna, who had been taking notes nearby, looked up. "What changed your mind?" "We analyzed the energy readings from the hatching. The child transferred measurable life force to the egg. That should be impossible according to every physical law we understand. It happened." Syrinx paused. "I built my career on cold logic, on provable facts. but I cannot deny what I witnessed. Love is not just emotion. In some cases, it is a force as real as gravity. Inside the habitat, Freya had given up on the ball. She was curled around Lucy instead, making a sound like a giant cat purring. Lucy was reading to her from a storybook, acting out all the different character voices. The Galactic Assembly wants to study this further, Syrinx continued. We have been going through the archives. There are 17,000 dragon eggs in stasis facilities across 3 systems. All of them declared dead. But if this one could be revived, you want to bring them all back, Yenna said. If possible, yes. But it would require human participation. Children, specifically. The bonding seems to work best with young humans who have not yet learned to suppress their emotional responses. You want to turn children into dragon incubators. Syrinx's scales flushed purple, a sign of embarrassment. That is not how I would phrase it. We would offer families the opportunity to participate in a recovery program. Voluntary. Supervised. Each child would be paired with 1 egg. The process would take months, possibly years. But the alternative is letting an entire species remain extinct. Yenna looked at Lucy and Freya. The girl and the dragon had fallen asleep together, Lucy's small body tucked against Freya's side, the dragon's wing draped over her like a blanket. They looked peaceful, complete, like they had been waiting their whole lives to find each other. I will send out the call, Yenna said, but I will not force anyone. And if the program causes any harm to the children, we shut it down immediately. Agreed. The announcement went out across human space 2 weeks later. Families with children were invited to join the Dragon Revival Initiative. The requirements were simple. The child had to genuinely want to participate. The family had to commit to living on or near one of the research stations. And they had to understand that nobody knew exactly what they were signing up for. Thousands applied within hours. Humans, it turned out, had been waiting their whole existence for an excuse to adopt dragon babies. The first group of families arrived at the station 3 months later. 12 children, ages 5 to 10, each carefully screened to ensure they understood the commitment. They were nervous and excited in equal measure, chattering about dragons as the transport docked. Lucy met them in the main hall with Freya at her side. The dragon was almost as tall as an adult human now, with scales that shifted colors based on her mood. She watched the new children with cautious curiosity. Do not be scared, Lucy told the group. The eggs can feel if you're scared. Just talk to them. Sing to them. Let them know they are not alone. The eggs have been brought up from cold storage and placed in individual chambers, each one assigned to a child. As the families filed past, Lucy saw the same wonder in their eyes that she had felt on that first day. The same instant recognition that something precious was waiting for them. A girl named Riley stopped in front of her assigned egg. It was slightly smaller than the others, with dark blue scales. She pressed her hand against its surface and whispered, "Hello, I'm going to take care of you." The egg's temperature reading ticked up by 0.1 degree that IT was beginning. Over the following months, the station transformed. Hatching chambers became nurseries. Research labs became playrooms. The empty corridors filled with the sound of children laughing and baby dragons learning to roar. It was chaos, messy, completely unscientific. The IT was beautiful. Lucy watched it all from Freya's back as the dragon practiced flying in the station's largest bay. They were a team now. Where Lucy went, Freya followed. Where Freya flew, Lucy held on tight and laughed at the impossible joy of it. Below them, Draxel continued its slow rotation. But it looked different now. Less like a tomb and more like a promise. The crystal forest would sing again someday. The cities would be rebuilt. The dragons would return to the world that had made them. And it would all be because a 6-year-old girl had looked at a cold, dead egg and decided it deserved to be loved. The doctor. Yenna recorded her final log entry at the end of the first year. 17 of the eggs had hatched. 5 more showed strong vital signs. The others were warming slowly, patient as the children who cared for them. For 200 years, she recorded, we tried to preserve the dragons through science. Through perfect storage and careful documentation. We saved their history but lost their future. Then the humans arrived with their illogical emotions and their stubborn hope. They did not try to preserve the past. They simply offered love. And love, it turns out, was the one thing that could bring the dragons home. She closed the log and walked to the observation deck. Through the windows, she could see Lucy and Freya soaring together, the dragon's wings catching starlight and scattering it into colors that had not existed before. Girl and dragon, human and ancient, two impossible things that had found each other across death and time. The roar that echoed through the station was not just Freya anymore. It was joined by other voices. Riley's dragon, other hatchlings learning to sing, a chorus building, growing, the sound of extinction reversing itself, the sound of life winning. Yenna smiled and thought about the future, about a generation of human children growing up with dragons, about the bonds they would form and the world they would build together, about everything science had said was impossible becoming routine. Sometimes the best answers were not found in data. Sometimes they were found in a child's stubborn belief that everything, absolutely everything, deserved a chance to be loved. The dragons were coming home, and humanity had given them the warmth to fly.